All right, let's dive into one of the most talked about, influential, and, let's be honest, downright controversial books out there, Robert Greene's The 48 Laws of Power.
So here's the big question. Why is a book that's over 2 decades old still flying off the shelves and sparking so much intense debate? I mean, you've got people calling it a brilliant guide to strategy, while others call it a psychopath's handbook. So let's unpack a few of its core ideas to see why it has such a lasting and polarizing appeal.
At its heart, the book's main idea is pretty simple, but it's also kinda chilling. It basically argues that power isn't about good versus evil or right versus wrong. Nope. It's a game. A social game with a very old, very timeless set of rules. And if you want to win, or maybe even just survive, you have to understand and play by those rules, whether you like them or not.
Okay, so if this is a game, what's rule number 1? Well, according to Greene, it all boils down to one thing, your reputation. He says it is the absolute cornerstone of all power.
I mean, the advice in the book is severe. Guard it with your life. That sounds extreme, right? But think about it. Your reputation is basically the lens that everyone sees you through. The exact same move can be seen as brilliant or idiotic, heroic or criminal. It all depends on the reputation of the person doing it.
To really see what this means in practice, let's look at a story. We're going way, way back to ancient China, to the court of Wei, and we're going to meet a guy named Mi Tzu Sha, who was a huge favorite of the ruler.
Now, you gotta understand, the stakes here were insane. There was this law, and it was brutal. If you use the ruler's personal coach without asking, they will literally chop your feet off. No joke. But then, Mitsushi's mother gets sick, and he panics. He forges an order, grabs the coach, and bolts. He's just committed a crime with a horrifying, life-altering punishment.
So you'd think he's done for, right? But here's where it gets wild. When the ruler finds out what happens, he doesn't order the punishment. Instead, because Mitsushaya had this amazing reputation for being a good and dutiful guy, the ruler totally reframes the situation. He sees it as this beautiful act of love for his mother. His reputation literally saved his feet and probably made him even more popular. That's the power we're talking about.
Okay, so let's say you've built this awesome reputation. Now what? How do you keep it, and maybe even increase your own value? Well, Greene's answer is all about mastering the art of being seen and not being seen.
It's really a simple idea, almost like supply and demand. The more you're around, the more people see and hear from you, the more common you seem. Your value actually drops. But if you pull back at just the right times, your absence makes people want you more. Scarcity creates value. As the book says, if you're never around, you're like a lion, but if you're always there, you just become, well, common.
And who was an absolute master of this? Napoleon Bonaparte. He knew that if people saw him all the time, even him, the emperor, he'd just become another boring part of the scenery. So he carefully controlled when and where he appeared, making every single time an event. That scarcity kept his powerful, almost mythical aura alive.
And this ties right into another law. Make other people come to you. Don't be the one chasing after them. Instead, you put out the bait and you wait. By making yourself a little less available, by mastering your absence, you force others to seek you out. You save your energy while they use up theirs. And that subtle shift puts all the power in your hands. All right, we're going to shift gears here because this next one, this is where the laws get really, really ruthless. It's not just about building a good reputation. It's about protecting it no matter what. And that means you can never, ever look like you've made a mistake.
So check out this story about this ancient general, Cao Cao. He screws up big time. He miscalculates the food supply, and now his whole army is about to starve, and morale is in the toilet. So does he own up to it? Oh no, he finds a scapegoat. He takes the guy in charge of the food, the commissary chief, and publicly blames him for the shortage, and has him executed. The soldiers see justice done, they feel better, and the general's mistake is completely hidden. His reputation for being a brilliant leader is saved. It's incredibly brutal, but from a purely strategic point of view, it worked perfectly.
So you see what's happening here, right? We've talked about guarding your reputation, mastering absence, hiding your mistakes. These aren't just a bunch of random, clever tricks. They're all pieces of a much bigger, overarching philosophy of power.
Here's the crucial takeaway from all this. Brute force is for amateurs. Real, lasting power is subtle. It's about being smarter than your opponent, about controlling your own feelings while you play on theirs. It's about understanding that what people see is way more important than what's actually real. It's a game of smoke and mirrors.
And you know, that's the thing you have to remember about this book. It is not a moral guide. It's not telling you what you should do.
It's more like a field manual, just describing what people have done throughout all of history to get power and to hold on to it. It just lays the mechanics of how people operate totally bare, for better or for worse. Which brings us to the final, unavoidable question that just hangs over this whole thing. When you start to learn to see the world as a giant chessboard and all the people in it as just pieces to be moved, what's the cost? Is it actually possible to master this ruthless game without losing the very things that make you human? That's really something to think about.